creates this great stigma around what it is and how well it can be done, and really the challenges associated with it. And I know that how we talk about it is very different than everybody else, because we want to make sure that we're actually providing a result, not just doing SEO for SEO's sake. And so Jenny and Liz, being our experts on staff here, have a lot harder job, because it's not as glamorous as some of the other people who do SEO make it out to be, because we don't really focus on, hey, you made it from 87th to 64th.
Yeah.
While that's important, that's the start, and there's other things that go along with it. So, it can be so fruitful if it's done well.
Yes, absolutely. So we are completely live. Welcome and hello, everyone, to another busy webinar. I am Dave Meyer. You'll see on screen as we chat, Trygve Olson, who is our director of Buzz Development, aka our lead sales guy. He was who you just heard talking. We have Jenny Stenberg, who is our lead SEO and analytics guru. Jenny, hello. Oh, you gotta talk so that your video talks. Hello. Perfect.
Oh, look at that.
And then, of course, Liz, who is our other SEO guru and is working with all of our clients as well. So, hey, Liz, how are you?
Hi.
Good. Perfect. So as we get going, I want to run through a few things. First, for our attendees today, you can ask questions live in one of two ways. Either use the Q&A function inside of the Zoom control panel, or you can go to the YouTube channel at BizzyWeb.com/YouTube, where we are streaming live as well. And you can ask questions right in the chat there too. All right, so a little bit about who we are and what we do here. You all know BizzyWeb, hopefully. I'm looking at our attendees list, and I think I see all familiar faces. So thanks everybody for joining. We already kind of shared about Jenny, Liz, myself, and Trygve. But we take all of this marketing stuff very seriously for our clients. We focus mostly on B2B services and some manufacturing. And the things that we try to do are to do more than just clicks and getting you to something. So we don't focus on tactics as much as we focus on results. So it's always a different mix for all of our clients. That said, there's going to be some downloads available for everyone at the end of this. So please hang on to that. You can send me an email at dave@bizzyweb.com or hello@bizzyweb.com if you would like today's deck, because there are going to be some handy reminders on how to do some of these things. But let's get down to business, because we've got a lot of content and people aren't here to hear me talk. They're here to hear Liz and Jenny. So
they might be here to hear me talk.
Well, yeah.
You're right. They're here to
right.
Never.
Fine. Let's talk about SEO. So search engine optimization, the art of helping you show up when people are looking for your business and what you do before they know your name, is all about content, being useful to your customers, and writing for clarity. Jenny and Liz, any kind of high level stuff that you like to counsel our clients on, or that you approach from the first level before we get started into my little overview?
I don't. I think that covers it. Right for clarity and your customers. A good balance between the two.
And consistency.
Perfect. Yes. So in general, then, for folks who aren't familiar with how SEO works, I just wanted to take a couple of seconds, and Jenny and Liz, by all means, chime in on this, but it all starts with how Google works. So when you go to Google or any other search engine, you simply type in your query, and then three things pop up. There's ads, increasingly a lot of ads, which are usually highlighted with a little ad flag, as I've highlighted here. Organic results is right below that. And that's what we're really talking about with search engine optimization. It's the art of getting you shown on Google results, ideally on page one, without paying for it. Over on the right, there's also a Google business profile that you can do at google.com/business. That's what helps you show up on Google Maps. We're not going to talk about that today, but there is a lot of info, and that's a fantastic free tool.
Dave,
yes, sir.
You mentioned it's important that it to be ideally on page one.
Yes.
Why?
Well, I'm sure Jenny and Liz can tell us even more about this, but the common joke in marketing is the best place to hide a dead body is page 2 of Google search results. So if
Because
you
nobody
want to
goes
get
there.
found, you need to make sure that you show up well. There's a lot of tricks that
I
go to
think
that.
statistically, I think 98% of people don't go to page 2.
Right. Yeah. And are there actual numbers, Liz or Jenny?
They just changed that. There aren't really pages. You can scroll forever, but people won't. They won't scroll past maybe the top 10, maybe 15 results. So page 1 could be 1 through 10 if you define it that way.
So swipe 1 if you're going
Yes.
in on your tablet or on your phone, right? Cool. So when you show up on this, Google downloads the entire web and makes a copy of all of that content. You can think of it as the world's largest library, with your search results and web pages being pages on a book. So you go through all of the books in the entire library, all of the content in all of the books in that library, and Google displays that content for you. So if I'm searching for something like yoga or for jams or jellies, for example, it's going to show up in this blue box. And if I was Trade Street Jam, this is how it would look. So there are a number of different things that show up in here. And this is actually one of the most common questions that I tend to get. So I'd love to get a little help in this from Jenny or Liz. How do you get like those fancy like products and recipes and all that stuff? What is that? And how do you show up with that super listing?
That's a good question. So the meta is a big piece of this. So you can build this and do, underneath there, the description of the company or the product is the first listing. And then under that, you can build out what links you want to show up underneath. Very similar to the top meta and title there. You can pull in your top service pages, your top products. It's really kind of up to you what shows there. It doesn't always show up in the results this way, but typically if you have it set up properly, the desktop version will show this.
Got it. So Google kind of does that automatically?
Yes.
Cool. So, because people ask me all the time, it's like, how can I make that? It doesn't look right. I'm like, well, update your meta descriptions and it'll probably fix it. You can kind of do structured snippets in Google Search Console, right? To sort of tweak some of that.
Yep, you can do the snippets. That kind of helps when you're building these out. The schema also will help. There's some tools you can put on your website that will are a little less technical to use, that you could build out something that looks like this. Cool.
And Catherine asked already, where do you go to set it up? So I'm assuming she means for the structured snippets and the content on the SEO, but there's a bunch of things that we'll talk about on both the web and in a few of the tools. So Catherine, we'll get to you in just a couple of minutes. Thanks for that question. So as we go through then, really what we mean by SEO is it's how to make you show up for searches before people know your company's name. So we do have a click or something to follow here. Just go to marketing.bizzyweb.com/SEO-checklist for everything that you need to know about this. But your goal is to make your website more visible, to connect with your consumers or your customers and increase sales. And that's by making yourself as findable as possible. So content, and that's going to be part of, I previewed the questions for the team. And, it's all about, Google can't match make with your content unless you have content on your website. So people ask us, well, I have a one-page website and I have 2 pictures on it. How do I show up? Like, well, duh, you have to have words on your website and on your pictures and on your links and on your descriptions. So anything in general to add here, team?
I think ultimately what Google really is if you can remember from the Tom Hanks movie Big, that when you ask that question of Zoltan, and you get an answer. That's really what Google's search engine is trying to do, is give you the best answer for you. And it's using all sorts of different learning in order to figure out what is contextually the best answer to the question. And so a lot of what you talked about, Dave, in terms of being able to sell more, it's really, and being found more, it's the people who are really using search engine optimization to their advantage right now are trying to have a full context of answers to the problems in which they solve through their business.
Excellent. Just a couple more things before we get to the real reason everyone's here. And that is the 3 things that you need to make sure to do with your website is that it needs to be fast. Slow websites. WordPress gets pretty bogged down with this, which is one of the reasons why we're recentering on HubSpot. Wix, Weebly, Squarespace websites, they have all kinds of junk on them in code that slows things down. It needs to look good on all browsers and devices. It's called mobile responsiveness. And if your website looks crappy on a phone, people aren't going to go there. And hate to break it to you, but 60% of all searches are on phones now. People look for you. 60%. So over half. And so you need to make sure that you're doing that. And then there are some helpful resources that we can show later. And actually, I need to pull that in. That's not working. So I guess you don't get that. That just means that we need to get right to the actual questions. So let's go to let's do the live question from Catherine. So where do you go to set up? Catherine, I'm assuming you're talking about search engine optimization. So if you're a webmaster or a business owner with a website, how do you do SEO?
Well, I'm going to assume that you have access to the back end of your site, and you can look at and post blogs, content. You can look at your pages. You can look at your media library. So all of this kind of starts in there in terms of actually doing the work, putting in the alt descriptions on your images, making sure your titles fit in both mobile and desktop versions. And there's ways to look at that in there, making sure all your pages that you want to show and all your blog posts have meta descriptions that match what the page is about, are not just stuffed with keywords. People want to really know that information before they click through, and it has to be thoughtful and it has to fit into the space there. So that's kind of the basics that you have to have on all your content on the back end of your site. And then there are also tools to measure that. So I guess you kind of need both of those things.
Sure. And we're going to be talking about analytics in a minute, but from our questions on screen here, is SEO also changing along with GA4 in July 2023?
I'll take that one.
Okay.
No.
Well, can I ask a question before we ask that question?
Yeah.
So I see GA4 everywhere. What is that?
So
go ahead, Dave.
Question, Mr. Olson. GA4 is the new version of Google Analytics, and it's called GA4 because there's been 3 iterations prior. Everything before this was pretty much just known as Google Analytics. Now, what we talk about for the old version of Google Analytics is Universal Analytics. And soon it'll be Dead Analytics because as of July, it's not going to be available at all. So that's where GA4 comes from. So is SEO really changing?
As far as in relation to GA4, no. There's always the consistent algorithm updates, every couple of weeks. They make changes to the algorithm and how they crawl your site. But in relation to GA4, nothing will change alongside that.
Got it. And probably measuring, but we're going to talk about that in a little bit, is going to change. How about our next one? Are SEO and GA4 compatible? Can you do SEO and still have and use GA4 and SEO?
Absolutely. You should have GA4 connected if you're going to do any sort of SEO work. Connecting Search Console would be key to get the data to pull through GA4 so you can see what keywords are ranking, what your traffic's doing, and the overall results from your SEO work.
Okay. Cool. And I can tell this one came from a seasoned marketer. How many keywords or phrases are best to use per blog?
Well, this has changed drastically. So, although keywords are maybe relevant on some level still, it's really more topic based. So, you don't necessarily need to put keywords or phrases in the blog as long as the topic is clear and consistent. You still want to have a structure that you're following, topics, keywords, phrases, ideas that you want to stick with and be consistent, but not necessarily putting in, SEO optimization, 20 times in a blog or something along those lines, whatever the topic might be.
Sure. And that's what's it called? Keyword stuffing. And Google hates that.
The good rule of thumb that I tend to advise people as they're looking at those kind of things is if you read it out loud and if it sounds weird, you probably put too many of the same keywords in. A lot of times you'll see for Minnesota's best plumbing, people in Minnesota who need plumbing go to Minnesota's best plumber, minnesotaplumbing.com. So I think I said Minnesota and plumbing like 12 times in that sentence, and it just sounded kind of awkward. And that's where the context of Google is really coming into focus in 2023, because they're looking not for how many times you say plumber, but how many times you say water heater repair, how many times you say pipes repair, so it's giving a much more full answer to the question.
Absolutely. And we do have a live question that just came in from Jenna, and she says, is ChatGPT good content for SEO?
Ooh, good question. Well, before they answer, I just want to give a shameless plug. Dave and I have our own podcast called the Dial It In Podcast, which is available anywhere you get podcasts. And the episode that drops tomorrow is our exclusive interview with the ChatGPT AI robot. I don't remember if we asked about SEO, but if you're interested in learning more about ChatGPT on the whole, it's a great podcast episode and it'll drop tomorrow. You'll have to find it where you get your podcasts.
For sure. And spoiler alert, we did talk about SEO a little bit. And one of the things that came up is ChatGPT tends to stuff the hell out of keywords. So it does exactly what Trygve said. Minnesota plumbing is a great thing if you're in Minnesota and you want plumbing, because plumbing is great in Minnesota. It talks about something, it repeats it again, and then it repeats it at the end. So you need to be really careful. There's no shortcut, great content, and it certainly won't replace it.
The nice thing about that ChatGPT can help with is if coming up with an outline and then you fill in your own content. I will say something that's lost in the AI content generation tools that I've seen is a little bit of the search intent, which Google weights heavily, which won't help your organic ranking. So if you use ChatGPT or one of the other AI tools, you really have to be careful that your intent isn't lost, who you're speaking to isn't lost, and also for keyword stuffing.
Gotcha. Next round of questions on SEO, and I think I'm going to switch how I screen share so that people can see us talking in between these. And just a warning for the team online, so you don't, because all the screens go haywire when you share and unshare. But our next question: what's the optimal amount of times each keyword or phrase should be repeated?
I think that we kind of touched on this. There's no optimal amount of times. I think if your topic is clear and concise, your keyword isn't as important as what you're talking about. So there used to be a time where they would say, 4 to 5 times throughout the content, and that has been lost, I guess, over time, to where the content topic is more valuable, consistency is more valuable than using keywords.
Got it. Okay. Next question. What's the best way to get backlinks?
I don't know if there's the best way. Partnerships are probably key. If you can find a website that, not the blogs or the old way of doing things where you throw your links on, forums and social media to get a backlink. Those don't have value anymore. But if you are a partner with somebody, for example, we use HubSpot. So if we could partner with HubSpot and write a blog or guest write a blog on their website and they link back, that would be kind of an example of the best backlink you could possibly get. And then, you kind of can build your strategy from there. You make a list of websites that are relative to your topic, to your business service, and try to create, kind of a relationship there where you both, blog on each other's sites or share links and things like that.
So all those link farm things that used to be de rigueur, that doesn't work.
Not anymore.
Okay, well, good. So I can
Unfortunately,
stop. I can just mark all of those as spam and never reply to any of them ever again. Excellent. So one more big question from the pre-selected questions, and I see an anonymous person asked a question just now, but how do you become an authority in Google's eyes?
I think that largely defines what you mean by authority.
I know one important piece or identifier of that is longevity. So, the longer your website or business has been in business, the value of your content, alongside the backlinks, the value of your backlinks are also heavily weighted on your authority score. And that builds over time.
Got it. Okay. Our anonymous attendee asks, is SEO the same in other languages? And how do you do SEO if your website is multi-language?
That's a good question.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I don't think I've ever worked with I've worked with a multi-language site before, but we do the initial SEO in English. So yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure what it translates over when you're looking at, say, a Spanish version of the site. I would think the overall strategy would be the same regardless of the language, because Google crawls the sites the same. But the multi-language might get interesting just because if it's not translating across the board, it may get lost.
I think if you have a multi-language site, you have to define your primary language in your schema. Isn't that right? And then that will pull through your SEO that way. I have not done it.
Well, and there's a couple ways to have a multi-language site, right? So if you have a multi-language site that you need to throw air quotes around because you just use Google Translate on your website, that's not really going to help you for SEO because Google is doing that lifting for you, and that's not really actual content. If, however, you do have 4 different websites essentially that all have their own content, Google will match that text to the language that it is. And like Liz said, you label it in the schema in the header of that web page text. This is the Spanish one. This is the Italian one. This is the whatever. And Google will give you more credit for that. And of course, you're going to rank higher than you would if you just used a Google Translate plugin on your WordPress website to, say habla español in a sort of a weird Spanglish version of your website, right? It's just not nearly as good. Fantastic question. Thank you, anonymous attendee. And I just say that because that's what Zoom says. All right, so I'm going to switch back to my sharing. And let's go into Google Analytics 4. So if you have other SEO questions, feel free to keep asking those, both on the YouTube channel at youtube.com/BizzyWeb, or of course in the Q&A tool inside of Zoom. So in general, I wanted to cover a few things about Google Analytics 4 and kind of bring us up to speed here, because we get so many questions about how this works. And Google just did us a huge favor last week, because it sent everyone that has Google Analytics, Universal Analytics, a message and said, hey, by the way, we're going to flip you over automatically if you don't pay attention to this. And so I had a bunch of clients freak out and say, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going on? I don't understand this Google thing. So here's the difference between Analytics 4 and Universal Analytics. So of course, GA4 is the new one, and it's more privacy focused and reports across websites and apps inside of a single interface. So you don't have separate interactions. There's not multiple accounts of analytics anymore, like you had for your app-based interface or for subdomains, for example. Everybody uses Google Analytics 4. If you just set it up, or if you set it up in the past like year and a half, you are on Google Analytics 4 already. But for us old school marketers, things are changing dramatically and officially as of July of this year. Everything's going to be migrated. They're doing it automatically if you don't pay attention and tell it not to. Anything else that I should be mentioning, or that we should mention before we get into kind of an overview?
I believe today they were going to add it to your account if it isn't already. So they were going to roll out GA4 today, and then it will be UA will be phased out by
right. And that's like literally today, like as of March 1st. Congratulations, you get GA4 and you get GA4. Okay, cool. And terrifying for folks that have no idea what it is, but it's not as big of a deal as many marketers might have you believe. And so I just wanted to give everyone a super brief overview on what Google Analytics 4 is and what it looks like and how you can use it. This is going to be incredibly fast and incredibly high level, because the questions are the big thing today. But just in general, if you've never set up analytics, go to g.co/analytics and click Get Started, the big blue button. And then you're going to set up a property. A property is simply your website or an app or a subdomain on your pages, whatever that is. There's all kinds of content and plugins. Most of this will automatically happen. You just have to enter in the data on your WordPress website, for example, or on your HubSpot website. There's a spot where you simply enter it in. And Google has a quick overview on most CMS platforms on how to hook up your analytics at the link on screen, g.co/grow/platforms. Super easy. If you do have it, and like Jenny said, as of March 1st, Google automatically set this up for everyone. So you have a version of Analytics 4 if you haven't done anything at all. But if you wanted to, you can go into admin at Google Analytics, and that's in the lower left that I've noted here. And then there's a setup assistance wizard in the main section of options inside of that page. It'll spin it up, and then you can start using that report as well. It doesn't delete Universal Analytics, but it will give you the additional opportunity to start messing around with Analytics 4. Have you guys seen any question or any problems?
How much does all this cost?
It's approximately $10,000 per page is what Google is charging. It's actually free. Thank you, Trygve.
Okay. And overall, if somebody doesn't have this, I know this is part of our general operating offering, and we make sure that we include this. What's the value of having this tool?
I'll let Liz and Jenny chime in on it.
I don't know. I mean, the value of the tool, I couldn't imagine doing any marketing digitally without it, or having a website. It's free. There's, paid versions of analytics tools out there. that, in my opinion, aren't as good. Google also allows you to deep dive much further into your data than some of the higher level plugins that you can use. So I guess in terms of just overall data value, invaluable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's if you're not measuring, you're not marketing, right? I mean, how can you improve if you don't know what you're doing? Sweet. So let me finish a quick overview here. So once you're in Google Analytics, and these are all examples and screens of GA4, you can look at your account, and the home tab is customizable, but it lets you look at what's most important to you. So it might be revenue, it might be how many people are on your website, it might be other specific insights. And there's actually a really neat little search feature that you can do. You'll note in the upper part of that, it says try searching, and it gives you, there's a little bit more AI-ish kind of stuff in here. So you can use natural language and say, how many people from Texas have visited my website in the past month? And it'll actually do that inside of this automatically. So it's an additional bit of functionality that we never had before in a new way. Other things, and again, this is super high level because I want to get to the Q&A, but reports is incredibly simple. You just click on the reports tab, and then you can customize all of the information so that you're getting what you want. There's real-time acquisition, engagement, monetization, retention, and even technology. So you can see who's visiting on Android devices versus iPhones, or on computers versus mobile devices. There's lots of report options. You can set different filters and date ranges, and you can set secondary dimensions. So I want everybody that visited within the past 30 days from insert city here, or everybody that visited this specific page and where they went after that. So you can set all of that up. We have a bunch of deeper trainings on all of this stuff that we'll be doing over the course of this year, but that's all super fun. And then just mega high level, and team, interrupt me if you want to call anything out on these, but real time is what's happening right now. They have fun little heat maps if you have enough traffic. So you can see, oh, well, there's a lot of stuff happening on the West Coast right now. And then you can drill down into all of these by either clicking on the blue dots in the map or by clicking around inside of the experience. So it's super fun to, if you're a data nerd, and anybody that's a marketer that's serious about it needs to be a little nerdy on their data. But you can just find out what's happening right now, and then where people are coming from through acquisition. That's organic, which is through search, none or referral. Referral is very, it's links from other websites. None is people that typed in your address, like physically. Data deleted, I don't know what that is actually. Jenny or Liz, do you know what the data deleted thing is in that box?
I'm not
Like
sure.
55,000, maybe the users have opted out or something of tracking.
That could be. I wonder if that's the new version of the unknown. So that would
yeah,
be private browsers.
Trying to give a little bit more background. That's acquisition. There's engagement. So you can see what people are doing on the website. So if they're coming back for more, or if they visit your website once and they leave, what are they doing? Where are they going? And engaged sessions are generally those that last 10 seconds or longer, have one or more conversion events. So they click on more than one page, and 2 or more page views. So you can kind of see how engaged are people that are visiting my website. Monetization, if you sell things on your website, you want to know how much money you're making. So you can set reports in that. Retention, how many people are coming back first time versus returning visitors, and what the different behavior is by that. So like returning visitors tend to check out our blog. First time visitors tend to go to the About Us page or whatever. And then of course, tech. So what devices, where are we? Who's on Chrome, who's on Safari, who's coming to us from where. and what kind of devices are they using. So that's super high level. So again, I want to get into Q&A. So let's get started with that. So first up, I signed up for GA4, but messages from Google still sound like I need to sign up. Are there 2 steps or what's going on?
I'm guessing possibly with that is the GA4 property code wasn't placed on the site, and maybe it's flagging it as it's not active.
Right. So that is a 2-step thing, right? So you not only have to activate GA4, but then you have to update your property in your website, right?
Yep.
Okay. So that's probably what happens. You done goofed is what happens. Cool. Second question, using custom dimensions for form submission events in GA4, previously destination goals in UA. I want to make sure I'm tracking everything I need to know what channels and content are converting. I'm actually going to screen share this again because that was a little lengthy.
Yeah.
So using custom dimensions, I want to make sure I'm tracking everything to know what content and channels are converting. Any advice for this person?
Yeah, so you're still will have to use GTM, Google Tag Manager, to set up your custom events. So GA4 will offer kind of your built-in events that are under the events tab. So your page views, duration, and the clicks and things like that, your kind of standard events. Any custom events will have to still be built in GTM and then pulled through GA4.
I think obvious question there is, what's GTM? What's Google Tag Manager?
That's Google's tracking system. So if you want to build out custom events, it is the tool where you can go onto your website. It connects similar to GA4 for setup, and then you build your events in Google Tag Manager. So for example, a button click or a form fill in this case, you would want to build out that event in GTM, and that connects with your Google Analytics account. So that event submission will then pull through. So all your data is showing in GA4, specifically for custom events like this.
Okay. Got it. And events, by events, we don't mean, like BizzyWeb's having a webinar. That's not the event we're talking about. It's literally a thing that happens on your website is what Google phrases as an event, right?
Yep.
Sweet. So like an event might be scrolled to the bottom of the page or, was deep enough. Cool. We have a question from Jamie. What is the recommended account structure for subdomains that have different audiences?
That's a good question. Let's see. So there's a couple of different ways you can pull that through. If it's a subdomain situation, I would recommend having a property for each. But you can build that right under your main account. So for example, BizzyWeb.com would be your main GA4 account. And then when you build out your properties, which is the next column over in the admin settings, you can add your subdomains there. That way you can kind of segment that data for your subdomains. So you're not looking at everything together, but you're also given the opportunity to look at all that data together if you'd want to.
Okay. So key is, don't set up one at Jenny at BizzyWeb.com and then another one at Liz at BizzyWeb.com. It all needs to be under the same user account. And you can assign different users so that multiple people can come in, but it all needs to be owned centrally so that you're not having 3 different things that are completely unconnected.
Yeah, we'll keep it more structured, and there can be conflicts with the code also if you do it in different accounts, and it could get messy potentially. Okay. So the cleanest way to keep it is under one main account and then structure the subdomains and the properties.
Okay, Cool. And Jamie, if you have follow-up questions on that, feel free to add more to the Q&A. Great question. Thank you. Let me go back to the share. And our next question is most
Jamie
important.
got a question in before you get there.
We did have a follow-up from Jamie. Okay, so separate properties for each subdomain is what Jamie's saying.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Yep. So we want to do separate properties for each subdomain if you're tracking them separately, but properties under the same account. Cool. Great feedback. All right. Thank you, Jamie. And thanks to Jenny for that. So more questions. Most important setup functions for GA4 to consider. So if you do anything when you're setting up Google Analytics 4, what should we make sure we do?
We mostly went through this, but make sure it's connected properly and is pulling your traffic through properly. The tags in the right place. Connect your tag manager because you'll want to set up your conversion events too. So you can measure form fills, even phone calls, contact link clicks, all those things.
Right. And an easy way to figure out if your account is working is just to go to real time or to live data. And if you are on your website or have another friend click on your website and it doesn't change by +1, or if the account data says 0, then something's not right.
Yeah. And it'll say too in the settings section of GA4, it'll tell you if it's pulling the traffic, and then you can see too in the real time. Yeah.
Oh, right on. Yeah. Cool. So next question, how to turn on GA on current old website?
I think you answered this one too, but if you go into the settings for analytics, there's a setup tool for GA4 in Universal in the settings.
Sure.
So it'll walk you through it in there.
You just have to make sure to update your data on your website so that it's pulling from that new account, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it'll tell you where to put the new snippet of code too. So
Sure. Okay, excellent. Let's go back, and last question that we had from the crowd. Tell me some basics so I can talk correctly to clients about what they are seeing for traffic on their site.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So I think G4 for the most part is the same. The data is relatively the same. It's just structured differently. So, you still have your basics like your users, your unique visitors, your sessions, and your kind of standard data that pulls through. Nothing has really changed there. What's different is engagement. Yeah, that's kind of the metric that has changed quite a bit, where we're used to reporting bounce rate. Now it's engagement rate. What does that mean? And I guess the deep dive there is kind of, it means all of the actions on the website. So you can now drill down into each individual action that's already automatically set up for you. So scroll depth, Dave, I think you mentioned that. You can click on that. It's already set up and see what those users are doing. And so you can kind of deep dive engagement rate for your clients, which is definitely much more information than we're used to seeing with kind of the standard UA setup. Some other basics. I mean, the clicks are still, those still pull through like the old version. So kind of that report screen that's set up automatically when you install GA4, all of those metrics are the same as the universal. And so those don't change, but you can also change them. Each card in that screen, you can change to, report on custom, data that your clients are used to seeing. So you can kind of set it up the way it used to look or similar.
Cool. Just a shameless plug here. We do have a blog on the things that you really need to know about Google Analytics 4. So if you go to BizzyWeb.com and then click on blog, this is from January 6th, but the 6 things you need to know about Google Analytics 4, according to our intrepid bloggers, UA disappears on July 1, but switch sooner, you're going to lose all your historical data. So make sure that you're tracking it and you get that data in as soon as possible so that you have somewhere to go to. It's mostly cookieless, event-based data and not session-based. This is where most people get really confused. So I thought this was super interesting. You know, it's UA, the old Google Analytics is all about page views. It's about click, 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 click. And people were misunderstanding, you know, just because people are clicking around on your site, that doesn't mean that it's actually doing what you want them to do. So that events thing, like when your app is installed, when a user clicks, when they visit a certain, or when they scroll down a certain amount, that's what really matters from using your website. So that's what we mean by events. And then app and web data. So you don't have separate pulls anymore. It can all be wrapped up into one account so that you don't have to visit more than one universal or more than one analytics. And then again, some of us were pretty hooked on views. So like acquisition, engagement, monetization, and retention are the new events overviews, but it's not done the same way that it used to be. So, you know, for our question, or for the person that asked the question, some basics, you know, it's just a slightly different way that you're using data. And again, if you go to that blog at BizzyWeb.com, that'll give you much more info. That's kind of, I would love to offer up additional questions for anybody that wants to know more, because this is your time. So let's go through it. And while we log more questions in, why don't Jenny and Liz, why don't you give us your what you want everybody to know and how to not panic with this whole GA4 thing.
I think it's key. Set up GTM, Google Tag Manager if you haven't already. Set up an account. It's super simple. Same with Search Console. Set those two up and connect them to your new GA4 account. So all the data pulls through, including your custom events and your keywords. All the keyword data from your SEO work will then pull through as well.
Okay.
The only other thing I don't think we really talked about a lot that's kind of cool is the exploration tab where you can build reports. It's a little bit finicky, but once you start doing it and moving the fields over, you can build reports better, I think, than what's available or was available in Universal. So,
okay. So make sure that you're playing with explorations. Super cool. Thank you. We do have another question from the crowd. Jenna says, how do you do SEO for Google My Business?
Well, it's minimal, but when you set up your Google My Business, you will want to make sure to include keywords in your services. So we'll use BizzyWeb. You know, we're going to want to make sure that we put pay-per-click advertising, SEO, Google Analytics, terms like that are related to your business are important. Images are important, just really building out your business profile like you would almost a mini website to fully optimize it. If it makes recommendations, definitely try and fill those in. So if they say put in images, definitely do that. Link your website, phone number, address is also important.
Got it. And if for folks that are wondering what we're talking about here, Google My Business or Google Business Profiles are what shows up when you search for your business name. So I type BizzyWeb in here, and then it showed up with this panel. Since I'm logged in as myself and I'm a manager on my account, I can also see all of these things. This isn't anything that regular users can see, but there are all kinds of things that you can do inside of the business profile, like create posts, which will sort of help your SEO, but having posts on Google Business Profiles, unless those posts are explicitly linking to your website, it won't necessarily improve your general SEO results, but they will make you show up higher in Google Business Profiles, which is mainly on Google Maps, right? So if you've ever wondered how those businesses, those restaurants show up with beautiful pictures and like the outside view and all that stuff, that's how you do it, is through google.com/business. So you can read reviews, messages, services and products. You can make posts. There's all kinds of fun things that you can do inside of it. But as an SEO tool, it's only good at helping you show up better in Google business profiles, which is still technically Google, but it's not your website content. So that was a great question, Jenna. Thank you. And then we do have another question. Along with GA4, are Google ads changing at all?
No, Google ads aren't changing, similar to SEO. So the main change is just the data piece of Google Analytics. But also when we're talking about connecting accounts, you're going to want to, if you have a Google Ads account, you're going to want to connect that to your GA4 also.
Perfect. So no big changes, nothing to panic about with Google Ads. There'll be a slightly different interface for how you view analytics inside of your ads. And what happens after people click. But, Google is also never going to stop tweaking and fiddling with this thing. So you do need to kind of stay on top of it. And if you don't have a partner to help you stay on top of it, then give us a call and we can chat about it and walk through it. If you do want more, the link that I shared earlier about the SEO checklist is here again, marketing.bizzyweb.com/SEO-checklist. Everyone that registered for today's event is going to get a link to that as a reply after the end of this. And again, remember to register for next month. The first Wednesday of each month, we cover something in marketing. So we're going to talk about how to use inbound marketing to recruit the best employees next month. Other final things for us today? We covered a lot. That was huge. And Jenny and Liz, thanks for all the answers on the big questions, because I learned a few things in here too. So, dude, wow. Everybody else's brains kind of full.
I know mine is.
Catherine, thank you. Yeah, last shot for Q&A. If you have anything, if you do want to reach us or have follow-up conversations, you can speak with me, Trygve, and of course, Jenny and Liz. The best way to do that is at that hello@bizzyweb.com. We'll route it over. Or, super secret insider hack. If you just do Liz at or Jenny at,
what?
You might be able to reach them. So that's how things work. So thank you, everybody. This has been tremendous fun. Liz, Jenny, it's been amazing. And it's always fun having you guys on. It's also fun to watch you squirm a little bit, to have to answer questions live. So that was tremendous. I am going to stop sharing. Oh, I did stop sharing. So we're all on the same boat, which also means that I forgot to share up one last time to give people those links. So here's our thank you slide. Again, marketing, bizzyweb.com/SEO checklist, and be sure to keep up with us on at SEO.com/events or bizzyweb.com/events. If we owned SEO.com, we might be in a slightly different spot. I just sold the domain already. Thanks, everybody. Here's how to get a hold of us. And until next time, have a fantastic month. Happy March Madness. Let's hope that spring actually springs by the time we're here together in April. And huge thank you again to Jenny, Liz, and Trygve for making this a super fun event.
Thanks, Dave.
Take care.